I'm a mobile podcaster, you know? I like to get in there. I like to move around. It just elevates the recording, Ryan.
Disagree.
Cue the music.
Hello and welcome back to the Comic Lyra podcast, where we comically
and literally
review comics. I'm Ryan, also known as Comic Stan. I love comic books, but my co-host loves
regular books. My name's Jamie.
But I make him read comic books, and this week we're talking about more Ultimate X-Men, continuing the trend of the last week with the Ultimates. With me, as always, my aforementioned ghostly co-host is Jamie. Go on.
Hello.
You were saying?
No, it's okay.
All right, never mind. Well, we're talking about Ultimate X-Men, and as I said, we did the Ultimates last week, so we thought, let's keep this gravy train rolling of good quality comics while we can, yeah?
I wonder what a gravy train is. Do you reckon it's just a train that carries gravy?
I imagine it's, do you ever, The Simpsons where they're the pool mobile?
Yeah.
Imagine a train carrying gravy, but there's no lids on the tops of the things. So it's like, we've got to keep this gravy train going, because if we don't, it's just going to all splash out.
Every time we break.
We have to slow down very slowly every time.
And keep the gravy train moving.
Exactly, yeah. I think we've solved it.
I think we have. Well done.
And if you're listening and you think, actually, it's for a different reason, I'm going to write in and tell them, do, but also don't.
Cue the music.
We've cued the music already.
I think we should have a new... I'm going to make it a bit that anytime I cue the music just plays.
I'd love to see how you enforce that.
Well, yeah. Can we try it?
If one day, if we invest in a soundboard with buttons, then we could do something like that.
Cue the music.
Yeah, still not working. I mean, I'm telling you from the future, it's definitely not working.
But I think it's funny.
It's one of the few times I can accurately predict the future and tell you that.
Well, because you're just not going to do it.
Yeah.
How much work is it for you to just snip a little bit out of the music and then play the ba-da-da-da-da-da in the middle of the podcast?
I mean, enough that I can't be asked to do it. Relative to other work, like other jobs, it's barely anything, but it's still not enough for me to think that I would bother doing it.
Well, then you should do the credits then.
Well, I was just going to say, if the listener is hearing a little bit of distortion, that might be a tech issue, which we apologize. We apologize for. It's a wire might be shitty, and we don't have access to another one until the next recording. So
we are using a cable that I purchased in my first ever recording setup that I bought in maybe 2014, maybe 2015. That cable it doesn't owe me anything, that cable.
But it's taken a beating.
It's just been used a lot. I mean, that cable is the only piece of equipment that we are currently using that has been present for every single Comic Lyra recording.
Just to give you an idea of how slapdash this whole setup truly is, But we are recording in a white room with doctors researching us. Whatever that joke was we did before.
Are we back onto that one?
Yeah,
that joke is stale.
All right, we're in a log cabin and...
That is a Comic Lyra deep cut, that joke. We tried to keep that gravy train rolling for months as well.
We're now in a log cabin with the Unabomber or something. I can't remember.
Don't say that.
What?
We'll end up on a list.
Oh, like we're not already on a list. Come on.
Do you reckon we're on a list?
If anyone knows about us, great. Regardless of the context.
If our CIA agent could tweet about us, please, that would be great.
I think the meme normally is FBI, but I suppose because we're out of the US, it would be the CIA technically, wouldn't it? But it's a whole jurisdictional nightmare,
Or it could be Interpol.
Probably Interpol. We're probably not at CIA level yet.
Yeah, more likely MI5 or Interpol.
Yeah, and speaking of oppressive governments, we're talking about the X-Men, and here are the credits that I'm about to read out. And like I said, with absolutely no break in between, there's nothing going on in the background, just ignore the gap, which I've probably taken out through editing anyway. This was written and drawn by one Peach Momoko.
Yeah,
who we are a big fan of here.
She's cool.
And we're starting from issue
12.
Yes, 12 to 15. Yes, so 4 issues. There was another one coming out this week, but we wanted to do this one now because of time constraints and scheduling and blah, 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 and it just made more sense for us to do now. We'll do another one towards the end of the year just because we like covering it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so 4 issues. And it was a bit of an interesting one because I think we caught it at kind of the worst time in terms of setting up stuff. There wasn't as much things happening.
There wasn't a lot going on. I think we got some character insight. We didn't get much plot, did we?
We got a plot point, but we don't know why it's significant yet, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll get into that.
So straight off the bat, the thing I thought was really cool, there was some fight scenes.
Should we say arting and story? We're covering it all because we've been here before. So it's same with Ultimates. We're just kind of doing everything at once.
Yeah, we're just chatting about the comic.
Exactly.
So there were some fight scenes in this one, and there hadn't really been many fight scenes leading up to this. And the way the fight scenes were drawn was so pretty. It was pretty is the only word I can use for it. So all of the characters were in grayscale, and then there was some area effects from kind of their powers and stuff that was in color. And it was all over this really like soft pink background. Did you notice it?
Yes, yeah.
Which I thought was just exceptionally pretty. It really felt to me, and again, I think this is what's so interesting to this comic to me, is that it really felt like a genuine attempt at blending Western comic book styles with like manga and manga art style. And it kind of, I think the Scott Pilgrim comparison is one that is going to come up for this one, because that was kind of blending the manga art style with the Joss Whedon filmmaking style almost.
The Whedon-esque dialogue and characterization especially.
Yeah, whereas this really feels like an attempt to blend Western comic books with manga. And I can't think of anything that's really done that in a meaningful way before. Certainly nothing that we've covered.
I think there's definitely been Western-influenced mangas, but not as much within the top big two as much as this.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely third party. Like, there's probably some image stuff that we don't know about. Like, I'd be shocked if there's nothing else that's used it in a Western way. But to see it on one of the biggest titles, normally what you see a lot of is you'll see like what they call variant covers.
Yeah.
So they'll get a guest star, say, draw a cover, and it'll go on some of the issues going out. And some, you'll be in a comic book store, you'll be like, oh, this one's a weird cover, and it's a guest artist, whatever. Lots of manga and anime, manga specifically for this medium, influences on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Not a whole comic drawn out. Yeah. Or there's been like anthology, what they call annuals, where it's just like a collection of stories for like a little bit of a one-off, or it's a anniversary of some kind or something like that. They'll be like, we got a manga artist into this one issue. There's the only other one I can think of is there was a Ninja Batman comic that got turned into an animation or something like that.
Cool.
But that was the manga and anime influence. Like, what if Batman went sucked back in time, and the Joker did as well, and now the Joker's like a bit of a samurai or something, and Batman has to become a samurai because it's contextually appropriate for the timeline he's now in.
Sounds cool.
Yeah, it was. I haven't seen it. I saw clips of it, and I was like, it looks a bit more like a gimmick.
Is
than
the
like
comic any good?
I haven't read the comic, so I don't know.
We should check that one out.
We'll look into it. But main point being, this is probably the most leaning towards the manga style that we've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like, for me, it definitely feels like the most complete exploration of what that would look like. I didn't necessarily get that sense from it the first time round. I was just kind of blown away by it and was thinking of how cool it was. But upon revisiting it, and I had read a couple of issues in the between, I had sort of dipped in and out of it to see what was going on. It really feels like the X-Men as a manga. Like, this is an exploration of what the X-Men could have looked like if it was a manga.
I think it's hard to say because it's so far away from the proper X-Men, and using the term proper X-Men is kind of dicey in itself. Like, the X-Men's been a lot of different things.
Proper.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, most people, I think, when they think of X-Men, they probably all have... Most people probably think of the Chris Claremont 80s lineup, which was the post-core group that didn't do as well, and then introducing second generation Wolverine, Gambit, Nightcrawler, Storm, and all that.
All those guys.
Yeah. So I think because most of those characters aren't here, I mean, the most well-known character here is probably Nico, or what's her name? God damn it, Psylocke, or a character who we know who will be Psylocke. Essentially, she's probably the most famous one. But even that, like, the fact that I couldn't remember her name goes to show, like, this is so far removed from X-Men, but it's trying to do those same kind of themes of like young people discovering their powers and that kind of core stuff, which I think they do really well. To be fair, you were saying about the fight scenes.
Yeah,
I think this for me comes back to a previous debate we've had, which is how art, when it looks aesthetically better or even just more interesting because it's doing different things, sometimes can lose a little bit of the clarity,
the legibility
of what's happening, the readability,
which
we coined.
because it isn't particularly legible.
It's not as bad as other things we've had, but like there were just some panels where I was like, what's happening here? And
yeah, no, totally.
prime example?
Prime example.
When Psylocke and Armor are using their powers in a fight. That was moments where I was like, I have to just kind of I have to spend a few seconds so it breaks the flow a little bit, just to kind of interpret like what limb or what psychic purple limb is hitting what red armor power body part. You know? So there was a few bits like that.
And again, I don't think there's a great distinction between the characters here a lot of the time. I think this is one of our, not complaints, but something we observed in the first sort of 12 issues.
I think there's just enough, but as in like, same with the fighting, I have to think about it for a second.
Yeah, there are points when I've been reading this where I've been a bit lost as to what's happening, but still...
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a whole nother point I was going to bring up.
But still thoroughly enjoying myself.
Yes.
That's the thing. For its foibles, which we'll get into, I've thoroughly enjoyed myself when I'm reading it.
Yeah.
I've found it exceptionally enjoyable.
My only criticisms of it, which I think are still, still fair enough criticisms, the criticisms I have are because it's such a lofty thing to attempt. Like this whole thing, this whole storytelling thing, the art, like everything that the criticisms I have are like, oh yeah, you didn't see this being an issue because you were really going for some, lofty stuff with this. I think it's a very ambitious comic, and it's really impressive how much it pulls it off.
Yeah.
But there are still some kind of teething problems, I suppose you could say, with doing this kind of style for this kind of story. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, there are moments when the art was just outstanding. So when Glasses Dude turns his
I call him Shadow King. I can't remember his proper name, but he's Shadow King.
When Shadow King turns his friend into a monster, he's talking, he's like, I see you, but I want to see your shadow. And it's all very creepy, and those creepy black speech bubbles that are really hard to read. Yeah. And he turns his friend into a monster. It's maybe some of the coolest art I've seen in a comic book.
I love every Shadow King art bit.
It's stunning, isn't it?
It's stunning, and at points genuinely creepy as well.
Yeah.
Like you always have to distinguish. You can always hesitant to say obviously it wasn't scary. Like I wasn't reading going but there are bits when you look at it and you look at this creepy, almost like a child drawing of a demon, which is contextually really creepy.
Yeah.
Like, was it like Insidious or those other ones where it's like the kid's like, what are you drawing there, Di? It's like, I drew us, the family. And he looks like, why have you drawn a red demon as well? Like, it's that kind of vibe, but on a comic, as the style. So it's almost like a subconscious, this is creepy because it reminds me of a child drawing a picture of a monster.
Yeah, 100%. It's impactful for that reason, isn't it?
But then you get the creepy smile and the eyes coming through. Yeah. I'll tell you, one of the creepiest drawings I took a picture of to just show, and it's not even what we're talking about, but it's related. It's the picture of the guy, Shadow King. It says afterwards is the one time we see him smile.
Yeah, and it's not a pleasant smile.
Yeah, and it's not that art. It's not that art of shadow monster climbing out of the TV or whatever he's normally doing, which is great stuff. It's just him, just black and white, just smiling really creepily because he got what he wanted.
Yeah, the other really impactful piece of art for me was when we see the close up of the Wolverine-esque character that he's leeching the powers from.
Yeah, so
oh my god,
that's a whole subject in itself. I don't think that's Wolverine anymore.
No, me neither, because they give him a name.
Yeah.
What I was curious to ask you though, and this is something that we might have to go into the annals of history a little bit about and offer some insight on next week, just tacked onto the next episode. There was that whole arc with Wolverine where he went to Japan and became a samurai, right?
Right, so I know who it is now. I know who the guy is.
Who is the guy?
So
has the next issue dropped?
No, it's I looked up and I know who he is in the main universe. So it's in this they're calling him Akihiro. I'm butchering the pronunciation, but I'm reading it as a spell Akihiro. And I've just searched it, and the first response that comes up is Daken. Daken is Wolverine's son, specifically his bisexual son, which...
Oh, it's Wolverine's bisexual son.
Yeah, I always bring up, it doesn't matter that he's bisexual. I just thought it's just always an interesting point of Wolverine's going to have a son. All right, and he's bisexual. Okay.
Not even gay, bisexual.
Yeah, but the funny thing about him as well is one of his powers, he's got pheromone powers, like as part of like the kind of animalistic part of the Wolverine lineage or whatever.
Is he maybe a contender for top shagger?
He might be, but the only thing is that he's not as well known. So it's like, how much of a top shagger can you be if people don't know?
Well, no, because he gets to fly under the radar.
No, but the people who do know him, it's like almost like a disparaging, like, yeah, he'll play get with anyone. Like, it's not like it's not Daredevil or Dick Grayson. Like, bloody hell! Like your career in the industry of pulling tail, or pulling tail,
and this is the week that we finally get cancelled.
Oh yeah, that was intentionally derogatory for comedic effect.
Pulling tail.
By explaining the joke, I've continued making it funny. But so with him, as I said, he's got these pheromone powers where he can pull anyone, and literally anyone, because the world is oyster in that regard. And it's people are just kind of like, it's cheating. I think that's the thing. It's like no one cares what he does.
Too easy.
But also debate in top shagger contention. Matt Murdock sent all those senses powers. Like, how well is he? How well is it just him? Or can he hear like heartbeats increase when he's talking to him?
We've had this conversation, haven't we?
Exactly. Yeah.
Where, I mean, I think Matt Murdock's powers almost give him an unfair advantage.
But then he's also he's the red-headed, like really attractive guy, so that's like a unique look. He's got that Catholic guilt, which like you gotta love. Those really handsome guys who are like really guilty about their sin and stuff. Like,
have sex with you and cry afterwards.
Exactly, yeah. That's good stuff. A man who's willing to sin and break his religious beliefs to have sex with you. That's pretty good.
There is something sexy about Catholicism, isn't there?
Exactly. It might be the no. Let's
I think it's all,
draw the line.
I think it's all the incense and Latin.
So, point being, Daken is a son of Wolverine in the main universe who naturally has his powers. Also explains why there's a kind of dream sequence Shadow Realm, which we'll have to talk about as a whole nother subject in itself. Yeah. But where one of the characters, Surge, I think she is. Yeah. She has the two claws coming out front and one coming out the bottom underside of the wrist. Yeah. That's Daken. Like that's what his claws look like.
Oh, so his claws are wonky.
Yeah, he's just got two up top and one up bottom, which for like fighting and attacking and stuff, like makes all because you can swipe either way.
I suppose then he's got a natural Ezio.
Yeah. Look, I don't know if he could do them separately. Like, you know, that's the thing. It's like swing your ring finger or whatever, like, and you can't move certain fingers by themselves or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, no, he's got a little bit. Personally, my favorite Wolverine offspring would be, well, technically not even offspring. X-23, his clone, technically. But I think she's cooler.
How is she a clone?
Because she got cloned. Because they got Wolverine's DNA and then they cloned him. But they switched the chromosome, like intentionally, yeah.
Right, okay. Because I was like, well, how the fuck has she got a...
Sorry, no. So she is part clone. I think they took the Y chromosome from a woman who... they did this in the Logan film. Yeah. I think they did it in the comics as well. But they took a Y chromosome from a woman who worked in the facility.
Right.
So she's kind of got a mother, if that makes sense. But she's because it's just the Y chromosome, it's mostly... She's almost like identical to Logan.
It's all Wolverine except for that Y chromosome.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, so Daken, we figured it out. We know who it is. His fate kind of sucks because it looks like, again, with the art thing and legibility, it looks like he might have been skinned alive.
I think he's been skinned alive.
But also it's not... I mean, we both got the same interpretation, but it's not detailed enough like it would be in a comic where you see like the muscle lines and you know what I mean?
You can see muscle, you just can't see bone.
Yeah, but then is that just like the texture of the drawing? Like, I think we're both correct in that he's presumably been skinned alive.
Yeah.
Although if he was skinned, that should grow back fairly quickly, but they are draining his powers to...
Does he have a regen factor?
Yeah, all Wolverine people have the regen. Like that's the main. Okay. That's that and the claws are like the two guaranteed parts you get with it.
Yeah, just not the adamantium.
No, because that was
that was a modification. That was retrofitted.
Yeah, but X-23 has it because she was cloned by a offshoot of the Weapon X program. So they were let's make a Wolverine and let's give him the metal as well. But they grafted the metal on her when she was like young, so it like fucked her up a little bit.
Oh.
Yeah, because when you... Oh, did you... I don't know. They might have put
because the adamantium isn't going to grow, is it?
No, exactly. I think they might have waited, to be fair. We have to at least wait to put the metal on the child's bones. Like, come on, guys. Not to be a hippie about it, but we do have to let the bones grow first. Is all I'm saying.
We can't weld all those growth plates shut just yet.
Someone has to defend it as if like they're like a politician suggesting socialist laws in America. Like, look, I know, just calm down. Like, I'm not being like
I'm not a communist.
I'm not being a communist about it. I'm just saying we should wait to put metal on the child's bones. Is all I'm saying.
And that one scientist is taken outside and summarily shot.
Yeah, it's like we always put metal on children's bones here. At Weapon X.
Look, right, we need the metal on the bones now. Yeah. Okay, we can't wait.
We'll change the metal later if we need.
Every year.
We've got infinite funding and presumably enough adamantium. Although they can't do that. I've got to correct myself. I've got to actually myself here.
Yeah.
Because adamantium, the thing about it is so in its raw form, it can be melted down.
Yeah.
Once it's set after that melting process, it is indestructible.
Yeah.
So that's the point. It's like Wolverine. Well, I have to actually myself again because that's the selling point of adamantium. But there's been a number of times when Wolverine's lost the metal on his bones.
Yeah.
Most specifically, or most notably, Magneto tore it off him at one point. He was just like, "You've annoyed me so many times where you get launched in my direction, and I have to stop you every time and remind you." That
you are magnetic.
You're the one person who can't attack me without me sensing the metal in your bones every single time. And you keep trying. I'm so annoyed now. I'm pulling the metal off your bones. So
I'm giving you the opportunity, sir.
Yeah. If anything, I'm increasing your effectiveness against me, Magneto. Although it's lucky that you didn't die from it as well. So he did go a bit feral for a bit after that.
I mean, Wolverine's always a bit feral.
Yeah, he went way more feral. Like, he turned Neanderthal almost, like post-metal
bone removal,
demetalling of bones,
demetalizing of the bones.
Yes, yeah.
So this is the son of Wolverine who's turned up in Japan.
Yep, for whatever reason,
because he doesn't look.
It's hard to tell with this, isn't it?
You know what I'm about to say, don't you?
Doesn't look Japanese?
No.
Yeah, and I think that is hard to tell here.
He's kind of the only one who doesn't have like a very mangaized character model, isn't he?
Yeah, but to be fair, they have a picture of him. So there's other characters. Is the older brother of Psylocke's character, who ex-police now, and someone I don't recognize who that person is. So like for not following it, maybe they're new, maybe they're not, maybe we've missed it. But she brings him these files, and it's like this character Ikehiro, again probably mispronouncing it, who's gone missing, and maybe he has something to do with whoever. And there's a picture there where he looks like he's wearing traditional Japanese garb or whatever you call it.
Like he looks like he's in a kimono, doesn't he?
Yeah, but also as we've said in main universe, Wolverine's a bit of a weeb. So if anywhere Wolverine was going to get someone pregnant and leave before they even know they're pregnant. Probably Japan. And that's just mainline. Right? Stands to reason.
Wolverine, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know this isn't about Wolverine, but I'm just curious now. Is he heavy?
Yeah, the metal is way heavy.
So not a top shagger then, because he just would crush people.
But also, he's really strong, so he keeps himself up.
So he could hold him.
Yeah, I reckon so.
But what if in his post-coital bliss, he just kind of flopped over?
But I think that's why he's so strong. And I think it's why he's so strong that he doesn't let that happen, you know? But, the thing about him is he's a short, stocky guy, so he's even normally without the metal, he'd
be heavy.
Yeah, but the reason he's so muscular all the time, it's not regen, is because he's moving metal bones with every movement. It's like was it Dragon Ball Goku in the
I train in weighted clothing,
the gravity thing.
Yeah,
he turns up the gravity and trains under that, or whatever. So yeah, it's that kind of thing basically. So again, back to the art. The scenes with Daken, who we now know as Daken, looks harrowing. He's got a mask on. He's strapped to the X thing, which is what we thought it was Wolverine to begin with, and I suppose it now does make sense.
Yeah,
you know who it is. But yeah, it's the eyes and the facial, like for how out there the art is at points, which is aesthetically really good.
Yeah, they
still managed to put really good facial expressions to get across fear and panic and stuff.
Absolutely. Like there is a real sense of creepiness running through this.
And even like there's the high octane stuff, like guys strapped up to a cross and being skinned alive or whatever. But there's also the bit where Maystorm, probably
Maystorm.
When she goes into the house of the Shadow King guy who's not there anymore, but his mum is like, his almost like fanatic follower now.
Yeah.
The looks on their faces when she kind of discovers May snooping around Shadow King's old room, they both look like Mai's terrified because she's like, an adult is acting really crazy.
Yeah.
And the mum is like, how dare you go into the sacred room of my son who's the Shadow King?
Did this to my son,
Yeah.
right? That's what she said. Like,
Yeah.
I blame you.
But they both have that look of their expressions look similar, but also distinct in fear and I don't know what you'd call it on hers, like panic,
frantic?
franticness, that kind of stuff. But yeah, all good stuff is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The Shadow Realm part.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So here's the thing. I kind of get what was happening.
Did you?
Yeah. Until... So...
Right, okay, yeah. I think we're about to get lost at the same point.
So talking about earlier, this is a great comic, and I really enjoy reading it. It's generally one of my favorite comics that's releasing right now.
Yeah.
That being said, like I said earlier, the criticisms of it are the method of storytelling here does feel like it leaves gaps at points, and that leaves me at certain points going, "Hang on, what's happened here?" So I've only got one prime example. I think you agree with me.
So it's actually the prime example today.
Yeah, but of a different thing. So,
Okay.
this is the prime example because I think it's more important. Whatever the last one I said before, that doesn't count now. This is the real. This is the real quiz.
You've unprimed it. You've deprimed it.
I've demetaled the kid's bones of that one. Putting the metal on this one. So, with this, there's a point where the Shadow King somehow gets to armor in a way that is now. I guess she's in a worse place now, and I guess Shadow King is a metaphor for depression here and guilt and stuff. So he gets through to her and mad because she feels so bad and he's bringing up all these bad memories, which I think we should address in a separate time-coded point later.
Yeah.
Because I do have a lot to say about that. But she's in a worse place. He's reminding her of all this bad stuff, puts her in an even worse place, manages to bring her to the Shadow Realm, which is now becoming a big plot point because there's a lot of talk in the cult and stuff. Apparently that's... The idea of a Shadow Realm is apparently very important to the cult of the Children of Atoms plans.
Yes.
So it's I like where that's all going. Like I like the kind of slow build up of all this. He gets her in there. Then we see a shot of her friends who like Maystorm, Psylocke, Nico, and Miro, the smaller one with the bunny ears. Yeah. We see them for a second with this kind of shadow thing, and then they are in the Shadow Realm.
Yeah.
But at that point, I'm like, are they actually in the Shadow Realm or are they not?
Yeah.
Like, are these, like, Shadow Realm stuff? Like, you don't know who's real or what.
I got a little lost there too.
Yeah.
Admittedly. But then I sort of wondered if actually this is supposed to be ambiguous. I wondered if that ambiguity was intentional.
So I'm going to disagree with you and then agree with you again.
Yeah, okay.
I disagree with you because then in the beginning of the next issue, you get the little blurb rundown.
Yeah.
I was kind of relying on those to be like, what actually happened? Because
I also read those.
Yeah. And I was always a little bit like, I think I get what's happened. Like, but I needed that little bit like, have I missed something? Have I got something wrong?
Yeah.
And this is what I mean by the inherent problem with the kind of storytelling here, which I think is a kind of manga thing as well.
Yeah.
It's not like as clear now we go here with this character, we're doing this.
It's not as linear, is it?
Yes, exactly. So the beginning of the next issue said, Armor, I still can't remember her proper name, so I just think of her as Armor.
Yeah.
But Armor is pulled into the Shadow Realm by the Shadow King along with her friends.
Yes.
So at that point, I'm like, right, so that is them.
That they are
right.
there, yeah.
So I get that now. Then they have this conversation. Armor is now kind of corrupted by the evil of the Shadow King and all that. And then that issue ends, and then the next issue starts, and some of the friends who were in the Shadow Realm are now in the first day of high school.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like,
all
we're doing a new
again?
thing now. Yeah. Not even necessarily normal, but they're not in the Shadow Realm.
They're not in the Shadow Realm anymore. How did they get back? Nobody knows, nobody cares.
And maybe this is my Western comic reader, like influenced whatever, but I'm like, how is the first line not, good thing we got out of the Shadow Realm? Like, boy,
are you now missing
exposition? You don't know how good you've got it till it's gone.
No,
you don't miss it till it's gone,
isn't it? Because I agree with you. It's a really abrupt shift, and it was this huge thing that kind of happened, and it was like, right, the Shadow Realm has been being teased for like 12 issues up to here, and then we kind of see people go there and shit happens there, and then they're back at school.
Yeah, it's just I needed, maybe it needs a strong word. I expected some kind
Some
of
exposition.
yeah, or even to see them leave.
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
not even exposition,
totally.
but like what happened? Like, are they stuck in the Shadow Realm? They seem to be doing all right. They were fighting Surge, the other character in the Shadow Realm, who may or may not have been real. She was very cool. She had the Daken claws for a bit.
Well, she was wearing his skin for a hot minute.
Yeah, and I only now making that connection. How is him not having skin in the real world connected to his skin being on someone in the Shadow Realm?
Yeah, totally.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, because you saw it. She kind of...
Oh, yeah. But I thought it was metaphorical, like, for some reason.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, well, hang on. Did they literally get his physical skin in, like, a loose cloth?
So she could wear it like a cape.
And, like, pass it into the Shadow Realm.
Because she kind of, like, opens his face up and climbs out of it, doesn't she? It's really creepy.
But again, because it's Shadow Realm stuff, I'm like, oh, is this all metaphor for things? And
then seeing her leave Daken's skin and then have the Wolverine claws.
Yeah.
I
The
was
Daken
like,
claws specifically.
She had the Daken claws. And it's like, oh.
Yeah.
Is she Daken?
And then after a bit of a fight, she lost the claws. Like they
and then started using other powers, right?
Yeah, just her normal surge powers, her electricity powers. So though there's a lot of stuff I think that is kind of open to a bit of interpretation or inference at the very least.
Again, though, I think what Peach Momoko is doing here is really fun because she's not giving us a lot of exposition, really.
The fact that I'm thinking about it is because I'm invested. So
and remember, we saw Daken issues and issues ago and went, oh my God, is that Wolverine? Who's that guy? And now she, through some really subtle nods that we as comic book readers didn't even get, by showing us the two claws on the top and the one underneath, has gone, oh, by the way, that's Daken.
Yeah, that I should have recognized that as Daken.
Yeah.
And the hardcore fans will.
This is it. And so I think what she's doing here is metering out these revelations and kind of, again, she's showing them to us, not telling us about.
Yeah.
And it kind of, those ambiguities and those points where things don't make a lot of sense, I am choosing to just kind of sit with them for a minute and be like, oh, I wonder what the fuck's happening there. But also I'm conscious that every time she's done this, it's paid off a few issues later. Yeah,
absolutely.
And so she's giving us a bunch of ambiguity, but she's paying it off slowly and integrating it into like places in the story where it makes sense. And so I'm giving it a mulligan on not making a lot of sense because the revelation comes and she pays it off.
There is actually a phrase that's used in the pro wrestling
God,
which I think very much applies to this. I think you'll agree.
Go on then.
It's whenever a bit of creative happens within the pro wrestling storytelling, and people are like, I don't like this, I don't think this is good, that kind of thing. The defenders of it will always use the same response, which is, let it play out.
Yeah.
So it's like, we haven't seen the end yet because wrestling never ends. And to an extent, comics never end to a degree. So it's like, you might, whatever you think of it now, maybe hold off on judging it until we see what the payoff is.
Let it play out.
Judge it. Yeah, exactly. So we're going to let it play out.
This is something that we will need to observe as a complete story.
I don't, because here's the thing: is you can argue that you can say how can you properly judge something because if you don't see it end, but also this is a medium that traditionally doesn't end. I mean, put it this way: if these comics like you have fears that it'll just end one day.
I do.
And I get that because the last one did end. The last one crashed and burned way before it ended. But also, if something's doing well and is successful, specifically monetarily, financially successful, it will keep going.
Which this has been, hasn't it?
Yeah. So, it's been one of the top comics every month or so, at least top 50, which is saying something for how many comics are released.
Yeah.
But main point being is if it never ends, then all we have to judge it by is how we're experiencing it as it's happening.
Yeah.
Right? We could, we down the line, we could say, oh, and then she did this reveal and it explained everything and everything's great now. So you can retroactively go, that was fine. But I think it's we're valid in how we feel about it now as readers going through, right? And you would do the same thing with a book. You'd be like, when I first got to this chapter, I didn't like it. But then when I finished the book, and then, it was actually good.
But she is paying things off, though. We are getting those payoffs. We are getting what we came for. And again, it's exceptionally enjoyable issue to issue. It is enjoyable.
I don't think our complaints, they're nothing to do with like, oh, she's doing this thing and she might just drop it and never address it again. I don't think that's not our complaint.
Yeah.
Our complaint is not being 100% sure of what's happened.
Yeah. And again, now that we talk about it, I don't know if it's because I came in with it as a complaint, as you did.
Yeah.
Now that we've talked about it and discussed it a bit, and we've explored some of the ways that these things are being paid off, I'm like, is this a complaint, or are we just so used to being spoon-fed these superhero stories?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
That now we're having one that's making us work for it, and it has these levels of ambiguity. We're a bit like, oh, shocked by it.
Yeah.
But actually, the ambiguity is built into the story and
Excuse me,
off.
you haven't spoon-fed me the plot? I'm confused. Like,
Excuse me, a character hasn't explicitly stood up and gone, oh, shucks, we're going to the Shadow Realm now to fight this character, and then there's a big splash panel of him with a little fucking insert from Stan Lee going, this
the Shadow
is this
Realm
guy.
was first created in
Exactly.
Fantastic Four issue 22.
Yeah, exactly. And those are the conventions of the genre, though, aren't they? And what we're seeing here is something more mature that just expects you to sit down and work it out, right? And that's pleasant.
And to its credit as well, we do get the blurbs at the beginning of every issue,
Yes.
which is a Marvel staple. For some reason, DC don't do
They
it,
don't
or at
love
least
it as
in
much,
modern.
do they?
But I think that is the best compromise of this whole kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because it's not in the story. It's not over exposition narration in the story. It's a little blurb of like the second or third page before the story properly starts. And it's there in a kind of like, if you want it, here.
You get to choose.
Yeah. Or if you are retroactively reading this, like well after, like kind of we do, we wait for issues to build up and then read them. If you do it that way, you don't need to read the next one. So of
the
normal
last one.
Yeah. Except in this scenario, I am reading them, even though I'm reading a bunch of issues at once, because as I said earlier, I'm like, is what I think happened what actually happened?
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to need that blurb to double check. But the point being, I think it helps that it doesn't interrupt the story to be like, here's what's just happened. Here's an optional blurb you can read and that'll clear things up.
It's kind of how everyone should be doing it, isn't it?
I think, I'm still bewildered that DC don't do it. Like, it just makes, especially if you're expecting people to read an issue a month.
Yeah.
Like, you, at a minimum, you should have here's what happened last issue.
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
to just remind people. But anyway, that's a different conversation. I mean, we've had the conversation. That's pretty much it.
We've had the conversation and that's it.
In a nutshell. So a bit I really enjoyed and am confused by to a certain degree. And also this whole Shadow Realm stuff happened in the last issue of what we're talking about, I think.
Penultimate, I want to say.
Let me double check that, because I depends on whether the next issue after it is meant to be the one that kind of explains stuff.
Well, that would make sense because it's an even number. They tend to come in multiples of 6, don't they?
I'm not sure how they're doing the volumes for. I think volumes normally about like 5 or 6 kind of issues. Yeah. So 15's the last issue. So that is the one that begins with the brother of Psylocke, ex-policeman, is meeting someone, and Psylocke herself has infiltrated the cult. So we're a little bit after the whole Shadow Realm thing, and we're not sure what's happening with the
Shadow Realm thing was the second issue that we read, the antepenultimate one of this sort of chunk that we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. So that kind of ends with like the Akiro, I don't know if I said that correctly again. So there's a point in the Shadow Realm bit, which again is not explained within the issues we've read, but as you said, could be explained later. And it is the appearance of the boy, who we'll mention in a bit, the kind of darker subject matter stuff. But the boy from Armor's Past shows up as almost like a good positive aspect to try and, counter the Shadow King.
Yeah.
The art with which he appears, with how dark and like detailed in this kind of out there manga style, his face, it's literally just like a
child drew it.
It's simplistic to the point of almost comedic. How his face is just a head shape, eyes, and a mouth. Like,
but isn't it a beautiful panel?
Exactly, and that's what I mean. It's like I really enjoyed it. I was like, that's so good when it happened. And then when I got to the next show, so I was like, wait, hang on, what? How did the Shadow Realm stuff end? Like, that would have been a great point for his appearance to be the catalyst that kind of shuts down that Shadow Realm thing as it's happening. But they don't even do that. Or if they did, I've completely missed it. But I don't think they did
I didn't clock it either.
So, yeah, I thought that was really interesting how they used it. I think one last general area to talk about is the area we kind of left till last, because I want to time code it and say if someone doesn't want to listen to what we're about to talk about, which is the themes of suicide in this. So, yeah, if you don't want to listen to it, I'll time code. I don't know if we're doing anything after it or not. It might be to the end of the episode or not, but...
Well, it's a lot to unpack, isn't it?
Exactly. So it might be the last bit of the episode, so you can either stop here or fast forward if we do a thing at the end or not. Yeah. So the reason we bring this up is because we get a kind of reveal, kind of not. So part of the, if for whatever reason you haven't read Ultimate X-Men, you just listen to us talking about it, one of the big plot points from issue 1 is that Armor's friend from middle school killed himself.
Yeah.
And it's that guilt that she's been carrying around. I can't remember if we already knew or not that we knew he gave her I can't remember what it's called, but it's like a little pendant thing. Is that the pendant, which is literally like it's a pendant depiction of her armor powers before she even had the armor powers. Yeah. So they are related in some way. We don't know how yet. Or maybe that just influenced the form that her powers took subconsciously. Yeah. But I don't know if we knew that she denied it was hers at some point.
Yes.
Or if that's a reveal now or not.
It's a reveal now.
Okay. So that's interesting. There's kind of a reveal that Shadow King... I think it was kind of up in the air with Shadow King was like angry at Armor for causing that in the friend who his name is, and I did note it down because I want to say it correctly, Tsubasa, I think. Tsubasa's suicide. I don't know if Shadow King was angry at Armor for that.
But he also sort of says that...
Well, that's another reveal.
Yeah. She asks if he was to do with it, and he said, well, I suggested it. He did it. And so it's suicide because it's not murder because I didn't do it, but I did kind of have a hand in it.
Yeah, I think that is very interesting, and I think that's where that is the strength of this inferring things, inferring character reveals and information stuff. Here is he truthful or not? Yeah. Because on the one hand, I looked at it when that's actually almost darkly realistic. Yeah, he didn't trick him. He didn't literally murder him with his powers or anything, or trick him or whatever. He literally just implanted just a suggestion, and that was like a seed.
That was enough.
A seed that grew in whatever this boy's like mental state was at the time. Yeah. Gave root to, this urge to end his life. So I thought that's really interesting. Again, darkly realistic, I think is the only way I can really describe it. But then I thought, maybe he's lying. Yeah. Maybe he did just...
Maybe this memory's fabricated.
Exactly.
Because again, it seems like a real jump. So
the fact that it was him who picked up the thing and offered it back to Armor was like, hey, I think you dropped this. And that was the moment Armor went, because everyone else was like, that's a dumb old person pendant, whatever. Yeah. And Armor's like, oh, no, that's not mine. And then Tsubasa's like, oh, fuck me then, I guess, right?
And he didn't even find it just on the floor. Because she'd told him it had fallen off her pencil case.
Yes.
And then the Shadow King dude says he found it behind a bunch of lockers.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that.
Hidden, obscured. And it was at the point, because she and the way she's pictured, the way they kind of depict that moment when he finds out, she's like on her knees. Like it's really overblown. And it's like, even if that thing is special, there's no indication that he's told her it's special. And so she just thinks it's a thing that he has given her.
Yeah.
That she clearly didn't like. And so she tried to hide the fact she didn't like it by getting rid of it discreetly, and then that was kind of revealed. I got the sense that this was a fabricated memory.
I hadn't even thought of that, and now that you're saying it, I'm like, it makes all the sense of the world now. So, but then maybe the fact that everything isn't laid out as clearly as we were complaining that it wasn't earlier, actually the strength of this style is that this part is so open to interpretation.
Yeah, exactly.
And you've given me a viewpoint that I didn't have, and now that's kind of changing my perception of it. And that's you can't get that with the traditional Marvel DC. Like, good thing we beat the dragon. Like,
yes,
not really open to interpretation
because
there.
This would have been explained to us.
Exactly,
a character would have explained this to us at a certain point. And so the kind of depth and breadth of her guilt, I think, is really galling, and how trivial the thing feels. Now, again, there is an element of cultural disconnect here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we are talking about Japanese culture, which is known to be very formal and to be quite serious, and gestures are really important. And so maybe to a Japanese reader, this would kind of make a bit more sense, potentially. I don't know.
I mean, all I know, and I think we've both mentioned this on previous episodes about this title, is that suicide is like a bigger issue in Japan.
Yeah, there's a whole like cultural precedent running through all of their art and their history.
And even the war with the kamikaze, and even going further than that. If anyone's seen Shogun, that one of the big things about that, which is a based on historical accurate books.
Choosing death over dishonor, samurai. The act is called seppuku.
Yes.
Falling on your own sword.
Yeah.
And so there is this sort of strong relationship with suicide in Japanese culture that doesn't necessarily exist in other cultures. I think it's fair to argue. And so, but again, you know, the whole sort of situation itself to me feels trivial. Not the suicide, but the events that led up to the suicide feel trivial, right?
The information we're now being given, and that's the thing is, the Shadow King could be totally honest. It could be a bad thing has happened that he
is exploited.
Yeah, well, an event like a friend didn't refuse to acknowledge a gift I'd given them. Like, we can say now as adults, like, that's quite trivial, but for high schoolers, like for them it seems like life or death. Like, my friend has rejected me, and this is a person I need to hang out with every day, and now I might not get that anymore, and this is big change that I'm not used to, and you know, that kind of stuff.
It's scary.
But so it could be, Shadow King could be honest in that Tsubasa was feeling that way. Again, I've probably butchered his name as well, just like Akiro, but he was probably feeling really down and genuinely depressed about all this stuff. And then the Shadow King could be honest and said, and then I implanted in him, in his mind, this suggestion that led to his suicide.
Exactly. So, and I think that whole scene is so open to interpretation, which is cool.
Yeah. And now I think this is the kind of other side of the coin. Like, I think we're pretty objective about, as much as possible, about comic. We're both very enthusiastic about it, but we're addressing the inherent problems that can happen with our reading of it in this style, and the strengths of it, like the things that at this point we are talking about in more kind of excited, like, maybe it means this, like attempting to interpret it.
I think the fact that we are reading a Marvel comic and we are talking about big pivotal scenes, and the fact that we both came away from them with different interpretations that both have textual weight, is exciting.
Yeah.
For a Marvel comic, that is exciting.
And we're not even getting that with, like, Ultimate Spider-Man or The Ultimates from last week. Like, there was no point we were like, I think they meant this. Like, it was very clear what The Ultimates meant every time. We were just really big fans of everything they were doing.
Yeah, and it's likable and it's charming and it's a fun reinvention of the Avengers formula. This is something different.
Yeah. And
this is truly something different.
Yeah, and the fact that it can be cute and jovial at points and going into these darker subject matters. I mean, again, like, I was saving it for this part, there is a splash page, or at least most of a page, and it does just cut to the noose on Tsubasa's corpse. Like, it shows him.
Hard to look at, isn't it?
And that, again, a thing in as well, like, I'm now thinking this because of what you said previously. None of these characters would have seen this except maybe Shadow King.
Yeah.
But if this is meant to be like an implant using an image that Arma's never seen, but now she's experiencing like a memory, but we know she never saw that.
Yeah.
Like, she never actually saw that specific scene. So then that kind of feeds into, like, is Shadow King just making all this, fabricating all this stuff?
That's what it's made me wonder about this character, is if part of his power is implanting memories,
or even implanting. I mean, if you even take him at his word, he can plant suggestions and thoughts.
Yes, so he can suggest ideas to you in such a way that they think you're yours. Can you do that with memories too? And that's what's, because one is powerful, the other is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's why he's such a great character.
Yeah.
I mean, in the mainline universe, what's interesting about the Shadow King is that he is a non-physical character. Not as in he doesn't fight. I mean, he literally doesn't have a physical body.
Yeah, he doesn't have corporeal form.
Exactly. He exists only in this shadow realm, which is like part of dreams and stuff like that. So that kind of makes him like inherently very powerful and also extremely weak because he can't physically do anything to you.
Yeah.
But he has a habit of like taking control of powerful mutants and kind of like trying to make him like his puppets almost, which they do again, we talk about things being unclear and ambiguous and open to interpretation. It's one part where he has literal puppet strings over armor. And it's like, that's very clear what you mean by that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's that I think Peach Momoko is striking a very delicate balance between over exposition and leaving things ambiguous for interpretation.
Yes.
And like we said, it's going to have. Should we say we're at the end of the talking about suicide part?
Yeah, I think we've talked about that enough.
Yeah. So welcome back if you've skipped ahead. But now we're kind of wrapping up in a little way. I was just saying that Peach Momoko, it's really interesting how she is kind of balancing well over exposition against leaving things ambiguous open for interpretation. There are going to be just problems with doing this for a big Marvel comic, like it's never, as far as we know, has never been done before.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if I'd call them problems. I'd just say it's kind of inherent in that style.
Yeah, and not even problems on her part or her execution.
Yeah.
Just inherent problem with doing that style for a fan base or readership that aren't used to it.
Yeah, totally. Because if you came into this as an X-Men fan, this is not an X-Men comic.
Yeah, I'd be fascinated to kind of get like some diehard X-Men comic fans. I mean, ultimately your mileage is going to vary on what you want out of comics.
Yeah.
Like if you literally just want like, what's Wolverine doing? Like even Ultimate Wolverine is it serves that in a little bit, but not how much they like. This is way further away than that.
I almost feel as though the people that this is intended to appeal to are Western manga readers.
Yeah. And to be fair, there has been a drive of Marvel, and I assume DC as well, to make manga titles under their banner. And so far, they have just been completely separate. Like, if they've got the Marvel logo on at all, it's just to be like, we publish this. Yeah. It's not part of anything. Actually, I swear there's a character. I'm not going to get into it just because I can't recall, and it's going to take ages for me to search.
Yeah.
But there have been manga characters, not maybe added to the main series, maybe not. I can't remember off the top of my head. But the main point is they are driving to try and capture that fan base.
Yeah.
It's because mangas are doing better, like in sales.
They're
than
exceptionally
comic books.
popular, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think the biggest difference, I mean, this could be the last bit, I know, I think it's an interesting subject. I think the reason for that is, because there's no obviously clear-cut explanation, I think it's because you get a book with like most of a story, like with a significant amount of the story 100%. In just one purchase. Whereas,
and it's the form factor of a paperback,
and it's the medium. So it's if anyone's reading it, it's this form, a book that's all the way. Whereas comics, we still have this I think is extremely antiquated monthly release schedule of an issue at a time.
Yeah, it's something that we've noticed, isn't it? Reviewing comics, because we get a title we're excited about and then we can't catch our own buzz with it because we have to wait 6 months
and
to then be able to talk about it,
and we have to go by the latest monthly issues if we want to talk about. I mean, that's the thing, if anyone wants to, and it's kind of how they have the fan base almost by the balls a little bit. If you want to talk about it when it's like hot and everyone's talking about it at once, you have to get the issue of 23 pages for an overprice. But if you waited for the trade paperback, one, the fact that you have to wait at all is a disposition. Yeah. Because, again, when it first comes out, that's when everyone's talking about it. But even if you don't care about people talking about it, which is probably most comic book fans, they're probably just consuming it in their own time, and they might not even be discussing it with anyone. Even then, trade paperbacks get delayed so, like, not even officially dead. They're not like, oh, it was meant to come out here, but it didn't. It's like, when's the trade paperback coming out? And they go, I don't know.
When we get it,
but
we get to
one
it.
Day, eventually.
Once the printing facility's got capacity for it.
We can't even tell you when it's going to come out. So that's where manga has comics beat. And I think comics needs to rehash all of this. I think the quick I think the quick fix that people go to is going like all online, which is obviously where it's going, and we benefit from a lot of like the online retailers like Marvel Unlimited, and I can't remember what the DC one's called because we don't use it as much. But Image comics are like only in comic book shops, which sucks having to track them down and whatnot. But even if you don't go the full online route, like the streaming comic book service or anything like that, which is inevitable eventually. But even if you don't do that, if you just release trade paperbacks, like comic book stores would just sell those instead of single issues.
Yeah, they wouldn't fuck with it.
Yeah, and they'd still have all these single issues that people can buy, like, you know, in the yard
Vintage.
boxes. Yeah, the vintage, like anything more than like 5 years ago, but essentially, But then the big ones on the walls would be the trade paperbacks with like a big book of like, you know, art and stuff. And
this is 6 issues of what's coming out right now.
Exactly.
Enjoy it.
And it would be chapters then. It wouldn't be the issues. It would just be, here's chapter 1 of a new series or whatever. You could still do comic, if you wanted to, you could still do single issues as previews. Yeah. So you could be like, here's issue 1, which everyone fucking loves. They love buying issue 1s.
And that would satisfy the collectors because it makes that single issue
It's the only one they fucking care about.
Yeah. It's the only one they care about having, unless something really significant happens or it has a cover by someone really famous. That's kind of what pushes it, isn't it?
Like a Death of Superman or something.
Yeah.
Or Captain America's Hydra.
Or Spider-Man leaving his suit behind.
Well, even that's like, that was only kind of famous after the fact.
Yeah.
Like Death of Superman, Captain America, Hydra, like those are things where as soon as they release, people are like, we need to buy those.
Yeah, that's going to be collectible.
I need to buy 100 of those.
Yeah.
Because I think they're going to be worth more. And now that I and everyone else is still the same, we fucked ourselves over because
we've ruined the market.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think issue 1, preview of it, get out to everyone, and then be like, if you like it, the full chapter is coming out in hardback.
Yeah.
They're also, DC Comics are doing well off the back of releasing manga-shaped compact comics.
Yeah, totally.
So they released just all their biggest ones, like Watchmen, Killing Joke, Batman Year One.
Well, the one thing that annoys me, and the reason that I don't collect more trade paperbacks, is because they're awkward on my bookshelf.
Oh yeah,
because, you know, I mean, I'm a bibliophile, I own a lot of books. When you set your bookshelves, you have a bunch of holes in the side of the shelf and a bunch of pins, and you set how tall you want the shelves to be, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I have to have an extra shelf that is bigger.
And as you can see, as I've done.
Yeah, to accommodate for all my trade paperbacks.
Yeah.
And so it's like actually releasing those compact editions that have the same form factor as like a paperback book. If I was super into DC, I'd be lapping that up.
And they've done really well. Like,
and it's how manga has always been released. Well,
exactly.
Manga tends to be released in collections of different stuff in the comics. Like you buy comics that are like magazine form factor, and then they collate it all into what we in the West think of as manga.
Yeah.
Because we don't get to purchase the manga as it comes out, because that's kind of a Japanese market thing only, like the Shonen Jump magazine.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that's a much better form factor, isn't it? Why have we gotten onto the form factor of comic books? How did we get here?
Manga and comics, yeah. That's an argument. And I think DC are really doing well getting ahead of it. I mean, I say getting ahead of it. They're really late. The whole medium is
They're
late.
Like 40 years late to the party.
Yeah, but they're ahead of Marvel in that regard.
Yeah.
They've done the biggest titles in comic form. They've sold really well. I think people just like the idea of like, oh, I don't have to find space for comic book sized books. It's
and
normal book
I
size.
can read it on the fucking train.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Holding a big old comic book.
Yeah, it's the same form factor as a paper book in my bag. Well, you know, really, people aren't reading as much, I would argue. I would argue that a lot of people's reading gets done now on commutes and, you know, times when it's
holiday book, yeah.
Times when it's kind of antisocial to be scrolling through TikTok because it makes a lot of noise, right? So when you're on public transport or you're in a public space, it's kind of nice to pull a book out because it's quiet and you're not impacting everybody else.
And I think books in general, reading in general, becoming more popular because people are more and more aware of the problems of social media and totally. Scrolling and stuff. So like just reading a book is way better option than any of that.
I went over to a dumb phone recently. You'll know this.
I'm very aware.
Are the listeners aware?
I think you have mentioned it in passing on the. I know because you mentioned about 100 times every time I see it, but I think the listeners once or twice.
So I went over to a dumb phone recently.
Yeah.
And the overwhelming sense that I get is millennials think I'm fucking weird. They're like, why do you not have a smartphone,
I mean,
you weirdo?
to be fair, they had those thoughts before you changed.
Yeah, and it's just,
this is another additional reason to
this. Yeah, this is just another reason that people think I'm weird. Gen Z that I come into contact with, though, like younger people that I come into contact with, they see me pull that phone out to send a text message to like my partner or whatever, and they're like, what is that thing? That's cool. And I kind of show them through it because I have quite a unique, interesting dumb phone, don't I? And I show them through it, and they're like, wow, that's so cool. Like, all of them, every single young person under about 25 that I've spoken to about it have all said to me, that's really interesting. I've been trying to limit my social media usage recently. I don't love my phone.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't love the way my phone makes my brain feel anymore. And I'm trying to limit it. And I've spoken to a bunch of people about like minimalist launches and all the different tips and things they're trying with their smartphones. And I'm like, you realize that these things still exist and they're still an alternative, right?
Well, yours is not easy to get a hold of, is it?
No, mine is distinctly difficult to get a hold of, yeah.
It's something people can do with smartphones and maybe will be available in the future because there's obviously a market for it.
And yeah, once younger people aren't using social media as much anymore and they're not as reliant on smartphones to entertain themselves, when they're not in the home, what are they going to do? Well, the time-honored, the thing that you did up until about 2005, if you had to sit in a doctor's waiting room, was either bring a book or read the magazine that was sat in the waiting room, and you brought a book. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think the kids are okay.
Yeah, I think there's still an appeal because people said with like online, this is a wild tangent. I've only got a couple more things to say on it. I think there's. People thought with online retail, like Amazon especially, but all of them, like no one's going to go to physical shops anymore because you can get everything online. You can get everything online.
But you go on a high street on a Saturday.
Yeah, people like to look at browse the stuff and like they like a I'm going to get a thing. Like I'm going to get a thing within a specific form or medium or whatever. I'm going to in this instance it'll be I'm going to get a comic or I'm going to, or hopefully it'll be I'm going to get a book. And maybe they choose, I'm going to actually get this Batman comic that I've heard so much about. Or maybe get to comics. Or they're already into comics. They're like, I'm going to get a comic because I get comics occasionally. But it's a book. They're not just buying a single issue and they're going to read it in 10 minutes. And so, well, that's done. And it was extortionately expensive for what I wanted. But if they get an actual hardcover book and it's a compact one and all the advantages, whatever, they can go and be like, Superman All-Star. Like, I'm not a Superman guy. This is meant to be the best. I'll read it. And if it was you, you'd be like, this sucks. But most people theoretically could enjoy it. The other thing I was going to say is, I've said before, I think I've said before on this podcast, but it bears saying again, social media or denying social media, I think is going to be the next humanities thing of like exercise now.
Yeah.
Where back in the day, and I say back in the day, I mean like in humanities, lifetime, we didn't need exercise because everything was manual labor.
Yeah.
Like you didn't need it. Then once we started not needing it, then we had to go, oh shit, I have to go on a treadmill for a bit because I'm not getting it anywhere else now. Like now I actually have to make an effort.
It's not built into my day anymore because now I work in an office.
The same thing is going to happen, I think, with social media and social interaction. Like limiting social media, like junk food, and actively seeking out physical social interaction in life as like going to the gym almost.
I think within the next 10 years, we will see bars that have little cubby lockers where you have to lock your phone up on the way into the door.
Yeah, I mean, the better one now, because I think people still don't like parting with stuff. Yeah. The ones they do for gigs and stuff is you get a bag to lock it in. And the bag, when we say a bag, it's like a little material envelope, phone-sized envelope, but it literally seals and you can't open it without a lock again, but you still get to hold on to it. For anyone who hasn't been to one of these shows or whatever, I remember when I went to see Dave Chappelle like 10 years ago or something.
Well, he's big on locking people's phones up, isn't he?
And I think
it's because he says a bunch of out-of-pocket shit about trans people. That's why he does it.
But he also, I think he was just one of the first to do it, and now it's just almost standard for like comedians of a certain level, especially even when they're just doing work in progress. Yeah. So it's just like to not have the jokes on the internet because they're still working on them, getting them ready for the special, which they want to sell to Netflix or whatever. Yeah. The other point I was going to say is, it's interesting you say about Gen Z being kind of enamored with the with the dummy phone. I think the reason for that is with every new generation, I think they always never even consciously, but subconsciously just want to find something to make theirs. And I think now the immediate thing that they can look at every generation above them, what do they all have in common? They're all addicted to their smartphones.
Yeah.
Even the elderly who barely know how to use them, but what few things they can do, they are scrolling Facebook endlessly or watching YouTube now. They've figured out that.
Playing Bejeweled Blitz.
Yeah, exactly. So they look at all that and they immediately go, well, everyone else is doing that. But we're like, again, this is all subconscious thought. This isn't like actual conscious thought. But I think they look at that and go, well, everyone else is doing that and that's uncool. We can be cool by it. For us, it'd be cool to not do what everyone else is doing.
The conversation that I always come back around to with them is that, and I think this is similar to, I think the Gen Z interest in my dumb phone is similar to my interest in vinyl when I was 18 at uni, which was, this is a cool thing that hasn't been a cultural norm in my lifetime, but I know my parents did it. And so I got into vinyl and I was like, this is such a lovely organic way to listen to music and it sounds crackly and I like it and I still love it. I still collect vinyl and predominantly is how I listen to music at home, right? So when I talk to Gen Zers and they know I'm kind of a young millennial, because we are. I mean, we're like a few years off the kind of cusp date.
I mean, I like to think myself as Gen Z, but just spiritually, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there are people who are around my age who are very millennial, and there are people around my age who kind of lean more towards being a bit Gen Z. When I say to them, like, I didn't have a smartphone until I was about 24, 25, they're like, oh, shit, you just didn't have that. And I'm like, they were around.
We were the only people we knew who were like that.
We were, because we were both about the same age, weren't we?
I don't remember what age I was, but what I do remember is that everyone else had like Facebook on their phone, and I had like Snake on my Sony Ericsson W810i.
Yeah,
I had well up to the point when it was embarrassing to not have a smarphone.
Well, I distinctly remember you and I being at a work thing together. And everybody else was Snapchatting the work thing, and we weren't.
Yes,
because neither of us had smartphones yet.
Yeah, and
we were in our mid-20s when we worked together.
Yeah, so around that age, I think is when I moved up. But yeah, it's interesting to think that we never even realized that we were never like, we're the only two like this. Like, I don't think we even ever had that conversation, because I think to us it was still like everyone else has smartphones. It wasn't we're weird for not having them. We were both equally like, it's crazy how everyone has smartphones.
Yeah, I just wasn't interested in it.
This is a hell of a tangent.
Everything
we're talking about. I think it's good that we've kept it till the end though, because I mean, if you've listened to the episode this long, like, you're in deep. Like,
then you just get to hear Ryan and I talk about our feelings on smartphones.
You've bought the ticket. You're just taking the ride now.
Yeah,
whether you like it or not.
Yeah, fuck. I need to get home, man. I've got home renovation to do.
That is a good point. We've fulfilled our contractual obligation. So hope you enjoyed it. And if you have enjoyed it, you've got to give us a review. Like, you've got to give us 5 stars, because we've not only reviewed a comic, which I wasn't sure we could get an hour of, but we have managed to. We've also given you some really insightful tangents. So I think, if anything, it'd actually be offensive to us if you didn't go on your podcast.
I think
catch of choice.
Our tangent at the end was the most, maybe
5-star worthy.
Maybe the most insightful content we've ever put on the internet.
Yeah, although we did do that bit. We did do that bit about putting metal on a kid's bones. So
we did, and there was the whole baby poo bit a few weeks back, which is just gold.
That was real. What's it called? Service messaging.
Public service.
Public service.
We were doing a public service. Yeah.
Anyway, So we've done our obligation. So tell them bye, and I'll put in the recording of me.
Peace out, all. Love you.
And thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, then please subscribe to get notified of our future episodes as well. And if you're feeling particularly generous, then please leave a 5-star review on whatever podcast app you're using. If you'd like to get in contact with us, then send an email to comiclit@gmail.com. You can also watch videos by me on the Comic Stand YouTube page, which is linked in the description. Thank you, goodbye.